For 3 weeks now, we've stood here and brought you stories of unspeakable violence from the Middle East, and mostly we've discussed it as something happening over there. But now a new wave of violence is spreading with a disturbing rise in attacks on Australian soil. Fire and fury, devastation and decimation. They're the images that have shocked and divided the world. And as the war between Israel and Hamas rages, a new battle is kicking off. Anger spilled out into the streets far from the front line. Australia is far from immune, this neo-Nazi group making anti-Semitic threats last week.
Australia, the white man's land, defended by the white man's guns.
2 Adelaide mosques firebombed this week.
This type of aggression in any place of worship is atrocious.
In the 2 weeks since Hamas's attack and the war that's followed, there's been a 1,000% rise in anti-Semitic incidents compared to the same period last year. Reports of Islamophobia have also risen by 1,000%, and last week saw the largest number of real-life incidents on record.
Verbal abuse being levelled at people. We've seen threats to mosques, threats to Islamic schools. We've seen graffiti, people being spat on, people being told that they're terrorists, that we should have buried all Palestinians.
Jewish students on university campuses being racially vilified. Friends of mine have been abused with anti-Semitic slurs. Members of my community afraid to wear their kippah, their yarmulke, out in public.
And this isn't a story of 2 minority groups attacking each other. These attacks are coming from right across the community.
There probably are parts of society that are using this as a reason to just engage in hate speech, but that the hatred and some of this, prejudice was probably there all along.
Palestinian and Muslim, Israeli and Jewish communities dealing not just with the trauma of what's happening to family and friends in Gaza and Israel, but the fear of what could happen here.
We've been getting feedback from a lot of Muslim women in particular about being afraid to go out alone, go out with their children.
There's a huge fear and anxiety that has swept the community. People are scared to leave their houses.
Sadly, those fears could be justified. ASIO Chief Mike Burgess warning this week the war will increase the chance of spontaneous violence. Worst case scenario?
A 71-year-old man sitting on top of a 6-year-old kid, stabbing him more than 26 times, and he was looking in his eyes.
At just 6 years old, Wadia and Fayoum's family says he had no idea about the war or the tensions around the world, but was made to pay the price. He and his mum allegedly attacked by their landlord, who'd become fearful of the Muslim family after immersing himself in talkback radio.
What happened that day for a gentleman that he loved that kid to start with. He used to bring him toys.
Culture wars are fueling the fire around the world. Our ASIO chief also warning leaders to watch their words, saying he's seen direct connections between inflamed language and inflamed community tensions. And here's the thing about that warning. It's not just directed at Jewish and Muslim leaders, it's directed at leaders right across the community, including those at the very top. And if they're not going to step up, it comes down to how the rest of us respond.
We shouldn't allow events that are happening halfway across the world to impact the way that we treat each other.
No anti-Semitism, no Islamophobia. Any type of discrimination is un-Australian and should be called what it really is: pure, unadulterated hate speech.
Gosh, it breaks my heart that these Islamic and Jewish communities are being doubly traumatised by things that are happening at home. Last time I was on this show, we talked about Australia being the lucky country and not wanting this speech to come in. I think the thing that is really difficult is the tendency to want to take a side. You want to find a good guy and a bad guy and know where the goodness is. But I think, or where the badness is, I think what I've been trying to do is to approach this whole situation with empathy for the people on both sides, the humans on both sides who are trying to get to deal with this and get on with this. And it's hard. I imagine it will be difficult when you see something happening to try and take a stand. But what you can do is approach people with love and empathy, regardless of what side they're on, because people are hurting. It's just awful.
Yeah, I remember when all that fighting about the protests and all that sort of stuff, you would hear people, whether it be in media or like talkback radio or politics or whatever, and the standard refrain, you've heard this forever, right, is you migrants don't bring your conflict here. The thing that really bothers me about these developments is they're not the ones bringing the conflict. This is people in the community here taking the conflict to them. And I find it really chilling, actually. It's a bit disturbing when something is as grave and as serious, and even for a lot of people, perhaps it feels existential, as what's going on in the Middle East right now. For people who are not involved in that way, who don't have family, whatever, to just turn it into another token in a culture war. Like, I'll just absorb this in, and now we're going to take sides in a way that means that we're going to project our anger, our violence on other things out at these communities. That I don't know, there's something about that really bothers me. It's fine for people to have opinions, strong opinions. Like, people can take sides. Like, that's what happens.
And I do wonder if, in the process of trying to figure out or taking sides or whatever, there's an echo chamber that you can get into in social media or the media that you consume, and there's a real onus to go and find a differing opinion and to try and understand the whole thing. That's time-consuming, that's difficult. But again, it's the approaching with empathy that's so important here, rather than think, I've got to take a side, or I feel really angry about this and I want to punish someone.
Go gently, because it's such a febrile situation, right? It's like a tinderbox ready to explode. We need to be kinder to each other.
Yeah, or at the very least, just not attack each other. How about that as a starting point?
Yeah.
We'll work on the rest.
Good plan.
We'll work on the rest of it.